Joining a professional body has never been more important. Join thousands of other professionals just like you who are getting ahead with CIHT membership. Go to the CIHT website and discover exclusive resources and why the leaders and future leaders of the sector are members with CIHT. Welcome to CIHT Podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Transport Talks, CIHT's podcast. Today I am talking to Shamala Evans-Gadgil on the future of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Shamala is currently doing a PhD in the development of a decision support model of the selection of future recharging infrastructures at the Research Institute for Clean Growth and Future Mobility at Coventry University. She is also an experienced civil engineer and a project manager working as a consultant to Coventry City Council. Hi Shamala, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging. I wanted to start off just by asking you what your opinions are on electric vehicles and if you think they are the answer to reaching net zero.
Hi Isabel, thanks for talking to me. Okay, so what are my views? I think that electric vehicles is one of the solution. I wouldn't say that is it. It's not a panacea for getting net zero. I think there are other zero emission options available within that umbrella of decarbonizing transport. So if I'm even on the road transport, there is a couple of other technologies that are there. It will take a little time. I think the 2050 is a good target year, and I think it is definitely achievable. From what I'm reading, from what I am hearing, technology transition always takes about a couple of decades anyway. So yeah, I think electric vehicles for private use and for the mainstream vehicles, and I'm talking about individual car ownership from that perspective, yes, electric vehicles definitely are the answer. I don't believe that, for example, say hydrogen cars are going to be practical. From that perspective, definitely electric vehicles is what we should be looking for. But your question about is that the answer? No, I would say that there are other technologies available that will take off and we have to develop them, because at the moment they are in their innovation or very early stages.
What sort of technologies are you thinking of when you say that the other to electric vehicles?
You've got different types. First of all, you have from a zero emission perspective, and that's what we need to look at, is that reducing the carbon footprint and NO2, the particulate matters and all of that. So when you're looking at fuel, from a fuel perspective, you've got hydrogen as well. I know that hydrogen for smaller vehicles, it definitely is not practical because the engine, the powertrain is going to be electric. So you are using electricity to generate hydrogen to then convert it back to electricity for the vehicle, even though the vehicle probably might be called a hydrogen vehicle. It is not cost effective from that perspective. And also the losses from the electricity side are great. So it becomes a prohibitive technology for smaller vehicles. However, for larger vehicles, from a road transport perspective, I think freight sector are still sitting on the fence because they still haven't made a decision whether they want to go electric, they want to go hydrogen. And I think probably because both the technologies are necessary, the geographical area, the demography will also determine what technology needs to be used on the road transport. In the rural areas, the distance will probably be one of the influencing factor on deciding what technology there should be. But at the moment, yes, those two technologies are zero emission, tailpipe zero emission. And I'm not talking about supply chain and their carbon footprints and all of that. Just literally looking at a zero tailpipe emission from that perspective. There are other fuel types, but they are not zero emission. They are ultra low emission. And there are alternative fuels that are, but I would say that those type of fuels are transition fuels, which is needed between, say, now and 2050, particularly for larger vehicles. So when you're looking at biomethane fuel, or when you look at the E-type, E10, E5, E10 synthetic fuels, all of these are ultra low emission fuels, not zero emission, but they definitely are instrumental in that transition to get to that net zero.
Sort of like a stepping stone.
Absolutely.
Along the way.
Yeah. That's what happened with the E5, then the E10. All of these, they are alternative fuel. They still have some emission. And what we are looking to do is get to net zero. And we will get there, But you've got brand new vehicles. You can't just ditch those vehicles. So you then do adapt and try and reduce the emission from that existing fuel system. So, I think for the next 20 odd year, which is the lifespan of these larger vehicles, they will get phased out. So during that phase out period, you do need to reduce the emission, and that is what is happening. So all the innovation that's going on currently in this field or on this landscape, absolutely spot on. And I think when you publicize the challenges, this is not going to work and it's going to affect the grades, or we're going to get the blackouts. If you don't voice these skepticism, the negative side of it, then the innovation doesn't happen. I mean, the technology is not new. We had electric cars 100 years ago. It's this application, how it is applied in the current climate. That is what's new, and that's what the innovation is. People keep talking about standardizing. They keep saying we need one app. No, at the moment, the innovation is still going on in this area. So it will come. All of this is happening. I mean, look at battery technology. Absolutely fantastic. Yes, there is issues with the supply chain and the actual minerals and materials, but they are looking at alternate materials already. So that battery chemistry is changing rapidly. It is evolving, including the range. I mean, I don't know, only 5 years ago, the range anxiety was
a big
huge.
issue.
It was one of the, I would say, barrier, where it's not. Like, for example, Coventry is going to become all-electric bus city by 2025. We started working on that project in 2019. And we were looking at the buses and the battery sizes, 250 kilowatt then. You've got battery sizes twice the size now. And that range and thinking that, we will need opportunity charging. Whereas now, opportunity charging is off the table, because they can do their duty cycles and get back to the depot to do nighttime depot charging with some charge still left in the bus. So the evolving nature of this is demonstrating, it is evidence-based that the electrification works.
And do you find that a problem where you set out to have the electric buses and you had a vision in mind of these 250 kilowatt batteries? So now when you're coming to the end, you're coming to the buses rolling out in 2025, and the technology is maybe more advanced than you predicted it to be when you started in 2019. Is that a struggle, or do you see that as a positive thing, that actually you're further along than you could have imagined?
I would say it is more about being further along than imagined. But then again, the imagination, because we do the forecasts, don't we? I mean, all you have to do is read likes of Bloomberg or Forbes, and you can get a sense. You can get the sense of where in 5 years, where they think it's going to be. And when you are looking at developing a project with something like all electric bus city, for example, or a zero emission city, you do need to look at what the forecasts are, where they think it's going to go. Although what was the state of play at the time in 2019, the battery technology has progressed a bit more rapidly than what was envisaged then, but I wouldn't say that it's a challenge. I think when we do these projects, one of the things, or when I do these projects, one of the things I always make sure the client, if you like, or the project sponsor or project director is aware that the changes are likely to happen because of the technology. So we will always look to get the latest. So I do tender documents. So when I'm doing procurement and I'm looking at 15 years or 20-year procurement document. So it's that making sure that you are forward thinking and sort of looking at what needs to be included in there so that the progress in the technology is incorporated. So at any given time, you need to make sure that it is a up-to-date technology available to the consumers, for example. So looking at that project like electric buses, yes, we were thinking, still not sure at the time, but expecting that when actually the bus operators go to put their order or place their order, we will have come to a point where the technology will demonstrate that, oh, instead of us requiring 10 buses with opportunity charging, we don't need that. We only need the 7 buses because we don't need opportunity charging because the battery sizes have increased, allowing us to do a whole day duty cycle. So I think there was an element of expectation, and it has done a bit better than expected. And when you talk to the manufacturers, they have more of an idea as well. Again, in 2019, I was speaking to Wright buses, Yutong or Pelican buses. There was Wave Industries in Coventry as well. And because they are the manufacturers, they are right in the thick of it or midst of it, they were able to also validate what you read, and you sort of tell them and have conversations with them that expectations were validated slightly at the time. So no, I wouldn't say it was a struggle, definitely not. I think it was more in a positive way. We also did a project before this project, which was through the ultra low emission bus project, the ULAB project we call it, in partnership with National Express. Coventry City Council bid for funding to have 10 electric buses. So as part of that, because I'm very much interested in pushing the boundaries. So when they say ULAB, okay, but I want to sort of see, can we create a sustainable project? Again, like I said earlier on, transport and energy, they never worked together before. And I'm sort of thinking, well, hang on a second, we have got facility here to demonstrate a sustainable project, which wasn't part of the scope. I sort of, took a chance, if you like, and asked for additional funding to install solar panels on the roof of the bus depot. And we got the funding and we installed enough panels. There were 350 voltage panels. So we had enough panels that is generating enough energy to power the 10 buses.
That's amazing.
And the 10 buses became operational end of August 2020. End of December 2020, we had the panels fitted. You need 1 year's data for the solar panels to validate. So we know what size battery is needed. However, without getting the data, we can't just go and purchase a battery. You do need that. So we got that data end of 21. And then July last year in 22, Zenobē installed the battery at the National Express site. So what the output of the deliverable of that particular project was to demonstrate that you can create a sustainable project and that it works. You can do it. So you just need to forward plan, forward thinking and all of that. So now they are also looking to put additional solar PVs on the roof. Because we have got data, there is now more of an evidence-based decision making there.
Definitely. So, yeah, that's so important.
Yeah. And of course, yes, there has been displacement of the buses. So we have looked for alternate space for it, and the City Council is working with National Express to basically facilitate that.
So the plans to scale up, is 10 buses all you need?
Oh, no,
For
no, no.
Coventry,
They've
or-
ordered 130 buses. We already have today just over 60 electric buses operating in Coventry. We have done all the testing for the remaining of the 70 or 80 buses. They have been delivered now. So Zenobie are National Express's partners, and they have got what you call the ETAS model. They're operating ETAS model. That is, what does that stand for? Electrification or electric transport as a service. ETAAS. And what that means is that Zenobie purchase all the buses, and they are operated by a bus operator. So they are in partnership. So yeah, we've got the charging infrastructure for 130 will be complete in the second quarter of this year.
Amazing.
And we think that this will all be ready by end of next year. But then
So
we have,
ahead of target then.
yeah, for National Express, but we also have Stagecoach buses, and they have decided that they will probably place the order towards the end of this year for them to then have the next 2 years to deliver. So that's the plan at the moment. This also has an impact because we have announced bus partnership in West Midlands. So what that means is that any buses that operates in Coventry will have to be electric. So it really is going to be a electric public transport. So that's going to have a big impact on the air quality in Coventry. They are under a ministerial direction to reduce air pollution. So we are actually launching the climate change strategy on 15th of February. So it's all going on the right track. But local authorities, it's a challenge,
Yeah, definitely.
to say the least. I think there is skill shortage in this area, particularly being able to understand what is required and all the deliverables, because you're touching on multiple disciplines within the authority. And so far, people tend to work within their own discipline. They have a fleeting knowledge of other areas. They have not really worked with them.
Yeah, it's not formal training.
No, it is difficult. Local authority officers are finding it difficult. They don't even know who this should sit with, because you talk electric, so where does it go, or vehicles. So it's quite a challenge for some authorities. You end up then seeing it with the lighting, because somebody's heard that, oh, there are lighting charges on the lamppost. So it suddenly goes and sits with the lighting guys, and it's like all of these people have got their own jobs, and this is like on top of it. So OZEV, Office for Zero Emission Vehicle, have found so far that the local authorities haven't taken advantage of the funding available. Now they're starting to see the impetus because of the levy, the fact that DfT published their electric vehicle charging infrastructure strategy last year in March. And then they also have said that the local electric vehicle infrastructure funding part, but there is now funding available for resource, but the skills, we need those skills. That's the thing. So I also chair the electric vehicle charging infrastructure working group at Transport Technology Forum. It's backed by LCRIG, which is again it's a DfT Innovate UK backed organization, if you like. And we've just published in 2022 a starter guide for local authorities to roll out charging infrastructure, literally 6 pages. And it's just for them it's almost like a checklist. You need to think of these things, and these are the disciplines within your authority that you need somebody, an officer, for you to then start to talk about. I mean, the collaboration is so important. It's so important. It's needed. Private sector, public sector needs to work together if you are to deliver and realize the bigger vision. You won't be able to do it on your own. So that collaboration element is, the understanding how you do it. So I think it started about 4-5 years ago. It has taken this long for the authorities to actually get on board, local authorities. So you now find, Senex are part of the Levi or levy support body, and they are undertaking road shows along with the PA Consulting, who are the second. It's like a triangle. It's a Energy Saving Trust, Senex, and PA Consulting. They have different deliverables or outputs, and the support that they will give are slightly different. But you can go to either of them. The roadshow is letting local authorities know where they are, what they're doing, that they've just launched their repository last week in Bristol. So there is so much going on, and it's that getting that knowledge dissemination is very important. And LCRIG is another medium that can push this knowledge out to the authorities. But that's all we can do, though. But you need the authority officers to actually access and read and start to do something. It's what's that English saying? You can take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink it. It is that, I think it's that stage. There will come a point when they will need to look at it, and the idea behind all of us doing all this work is that the material will be there for them to access. So like I said, we sort of published that starter guide.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
exactly
you
what's
can
needed.
you can access that by going on Transport Technology Forum, and it is useful. It also then on the last page is signposts you to different, it gives you links to go on to Senex, to go on to EST, from procurement side, CCS framework, ESPO framework, all the different, how you can access different facilities where you have, if you want to know more in detail, then you can go and have a look at these things. It is by no means, those are not the only ones, but they are one of the ones that will give you some additional details if you need it.
I wanted to ask what the biggest lessons you've learnt whilst working in EV structure are, and what you might have done differently looking back.
Lessons learned, good God, so many lessons learned. You are always learning. I'm still learning. So I've just awarded our 4th contract. Procurement is something that we need to address, and I'm fairly certain that the powers to be are addressing it. Procurement is a challenge, especially when you are looking at disruptive technologies, or you're wanting to work with disruptive technologies. Procurement plays a very strange role in this. But I suppose in a way, the first contract for the residential charges, if you like, is so very different to what we've just signed up. And that is based on my experience of the first one. So when you look at the parameters that you've set, and then as you are managing that contract, you are then learning other things. When you are physically going to deliver something, you suddenly think, oh, I should have used that, or I should have done this. So the first bit was looking at site selection. We really got a pushback, really big pushback, because we wanted to install chargers on the lamppost, which were on the street in front of a property. And it's like, oh my God, you can't take the space away. On-street parking spaces are basically for those residents priceless. And the perception is that if you put charging point there, then you are taking away a space. So yes, learned that no, can't put it in front of someone's house. So location identification, a densely populated terraced property streets needs to be the gable end of the property, that kind of stuff. So yes, these are lessons learned which were then applied in the next phase and in the next phase. Challenges, yeah, again, UK. So it's not just Coventry. I think underground infrastructure is prevalent everywhere. Utilities in the footpath, and though they are challenging, to try and install the foundation for a charging unit in a footpath is very challenging. So we found we had to design solutions because we were stuck. So the solutions were designed, and I feel fairly fortunate that the partners that we've got, the charge point operators, the civil contractor, have been excellent from a collaboration perspective, from a partnership working together perspective. So my experience has been positive. My experience hasn't been negative. And because I've been in this industry for over 30 years, and I've worked in all the departments in a local authority. And I have also done over a decade's work in private sector. So understanding the different disciplines within a authority and their corporate structure, how it operates, how it works, the approvals that you need in place, the legislations and regulations that are applied, for example, on a highway. It is important. It has served me quite well. So I know what is needed to carry out work on a highway, for example. So it has been easier, and my background being a civil engineer to begin with, I would say for me, the challenges were slightly less than it would be for somebody who hasn't got a civils background, for example, or who hasn't worked with procurement, who hasn't worked with planning. Then yes, I can see there being some bigger challenges for them. The delivery timeline tends to be the biggest challenge, the funding availability for that 1 year. So you have to apply for and deliver in that year has been challenging so far. Now they are looking at you bid for in a year and you then deliver the following year is slightly more palatable. And I think it will help other local authorities to cure, because the first year you would bid, get the funding, procure, and then deliver. So I think these are all two lessons learned. And it's not just the local authority learning the lessons, it is OZEB are also learning it, because this is so new. I think are we still in the infant stage? I think so, yeah. We are still at that stage. I think there is a lot more evidence required to understand what works best, what doesn't work best, where it should be, where it shouldn't be. It's just that I think standardization and making it being hasty in standardizing something, I don't think is going to be beneficial.
Do you think there needs to be a bit more time for creativity before we put the standards on?
Yeah, because you if you standardize something, you've just completely put a halt to any innovation in that section, that part. That's it. You can't do anything else with it. And I think it would be, I think we need to give a little bit more time. Things like the mass or bringing the mobility together, micro mobility together, and create. If you want to create a app, a single something, then it needs to be, you need to include. It needs to be inclusive. So you need to include all different modes of transport and allow that integration to happen. If you suddenly go and say, no, we are going to have this one app for charging, you've just, you've stopped it. You've stopped that integration between, I don't know, public transport, the train, the buses, the taxis, the charging. You can bring it all together, and people are working on it. And I think the government is, they are doing it though, because by the time they end up doing the concept, sometimes they take too slow because of how long they take for things to, the consultation process, the analysis and all of that before any regulations or policies come into force. And we've gone past it. I mean, this is science. You are in science and sort of business. It's just quite a strange accumulation of moving forward in this space. But because the innovation and the technology development is evolving so fast, and all we need to do is look at mobile phones. Before you know it, you're on the next one. You look at other softwares that we operate in the engineering field anyway. 6 months, 3 months, something new has come. And the policies and regulations end up getting left way behind. So by the time they are ready to make that policy, you've gone 10 steps ahead. So I think there needs to be a balance. They will achieve it. I don't think we've done too bad so far.
And there was just one more thing I wanted to touch on, because it sounds amazing, and I'm sorry that we haven't mentioned it yet, but you're doing a PhD in EV charging infrastructure, aren't you?
I am indeed, for my sins. I don't know what possessed me, but like I said earlier on, this is exciting times. And I am always looking for challenges. I'm sort of thinking, oh, where's the gap? Here's the gap. Let's do this. Let's see how it works. And I thought, well, what is all this about? It is research, isn't it? You keep looking and keep poking at things to find what works, what doesn't work. So I thought, right, I'll sign up to a PhD. It's a bit different than normal research, but yeah, it is interesting. I'm sort of looking at, well, the idea is to develop a decision-making tool, but I'm not just here, anywhere. It's like using Excel. Anybody, doesn't matter where you go in the world, you can use Microsoft Excel. It's similar kind of thing. So certain parameters. So understanding first that different markets need different solutions because they are not at the same pace in the rollout of charging infrastructure. And I am looking at charging infrastructure as a system rather than electric vehicle as a system. Yeah, so I'm looking at it from that perspective. The architecture is around charging infrastructure. So what type of charging infrastructure is needed? What are the dependents? What are the external influences for when you're making a decision? That is what I would like to do. By the time I end up finishing my PhD, I don't know, somebody else might have already done it. Who knows? But that's where I'm heading at. I've touched on dynamic wireless charging technology. So,
and do you think that's feasible? Like something
100%,
we could see in the future?
100%, because if you think about it, that is what started me in the PhD to begin with, because back in 2018, I was sort of thinking, well, large vehicles, it's going to be difficult electrification, sort of the freight. I mean, what is their business model? It's carrying goods. What does that mean then? It means that they need the space is their commercial part of their business, really, and batteries take up space. So how will that work? But then if you start looking at what are the regulations, they have to stop every 4 hours. So what if you then start installing charging infrastructure there, but you don't have that every 4 hours. You have a lay-by for freight to pull up for 20 odd minutes, but it's only so many at a time, and it's probably not practical. But what if you reduce the battery size, okay, then give them back their cargo space, but still then when you end up going to your stop point, you don't have to stop for few hours because your state of charge, quite a decent a decent level. So you just need a top up. That means if you are able to charge as you're driving, then all these bits you're able to do.
And is that the same as electric roads with
Yeah.
the wires going overhead?
No.
In the road?
Yeah. So what are the different types? So you have got plug-in charging. You then have static wireless charging. Static, so you stay in one place. You have pads in the floor. So either it's a garage or a road or a depot. Then you've got dynamic wireless charging. That's charging as you drive, but that has three types. You have the catenary, so you've got the wires like the trams. You've got conduit charging, so the unit that is traveling on the road has a lever at the back and then you have to create a trench in the carriageway, and that lever drops in there, and that transmits the energy. So that is the conduit charging. Then you've got this, what I'm talking about. You embed the coils in the carriageway. You have a receiver in the bottom of your vehicle, and as you're driving it, you are collecting the charge. So those are the three for dynamic wireless. Well, there is only one wireless, but dynamic charging or dynamic power transfer. And then you have got static, you've got the pad and the pantograph charging. Again, it has to be you stop in one place. So the pantograph, the catenary, conduit, these three are typically only for freight type vehicles, large vehicles. The static and plug-in, the smaller vehicles, the vans and stuff, all of those. So I was looking at the dynamic wireless power transfer technology. I got a consortium together. It is still together. I'm at the moment looking for phase 2, some funding. But phase 1, National Grid, or then Western Power, they are also part of this consortium. And we got funding from National Innovation Allowance Fund to do a feasibility study and to look at what impact this technology will have on the grid if we had ERSs everywhere, And we did that, and it was a very, very good positive output. It was concluded in December 21. There is a phase 2, and I want some money. So we want to do a demonstrator. And if we are able to secure the funding, then that will be the first in UK. It's Electrion's technology, and National Express are also our partners. We would be putting a receiver on one of their electric buses. It's demonstrating the technology, whether it work or not. Yes, this technology will take some time, but there are car manufacturers